And now let us deal with morphological stylistics. The next level, as we have already mentioned, is morphemic. The basic unit of this level is a morpheme. General non-stylistic morphology treats morphemes and grammatical meanings expressed by them in language in general, without regard to their stylistic value. Morphological stylistics views stylistic potential of grammatical categories of different parts of speech. Special stylistic value is achieved in root and affixational morphemes through repetition. The following sentences might serve as examples of this. She unchained, unbolted, and unlocked the door. It was there again, more clearly than before, the terrible expression of pain in her eyes, unblinking, unaccepting, unbelieving pain. We were sitting in the cheapest of all the cheap restaurants that cheapen that very cheap and noisy street in Paris. New scum, of course, has risen to take the place of the old, but the oldest scum, the thickest scum, and the scummiest scum has come from across the ocean. At the time light rain or storm darkened the fortress, I watched the coming of dark from the high tower. The fortress, with its rocky view, showed its temporary darkling life of lanterns. Laughing, crying, cheering, chaffing, singing, David Ross's people brought him home in triumph. In a sudden burst of slipping, climbing, jingling, clinking, and talking, they arrived at the convent door. The procession then reformed, the chairmen resumed their stations, and the march was recommenced. The precious twins, untried, unnoticed, undirected, and I sat quiet with my hands down, undiscovered, were over-brave and over-fearful, over-friendly and at the same time frightened of strangers, were over-sentimental and realistic. The next level is lexical level. Lexicology, as you remember, deals with stylistic classification, differentiation of the vocabulary that form a part of stylistics. In stylistic lexicology, each unit is studied separately instead of as a whole text or group of words, word classification. And you remember from the course of lexicology that the semantic structure of a word is constituted of various types of lexical meanings, the major one being denotational, which informs of the subject of communication, and also including connotational, emotive, revealing the emotional layer of cognition and perception, expressive, aiming at creating the image of the object in question, or stylistic, indicating the register or the situation of the communication. Lexical stylistics studies functions of direct and figurative meanings. Also, the way contextual meaning of a word is realized in the text. Lexical stylistics deals with various types of connotations, expressive, evaluative, emotive, etc. And now let me remind you denotation and connotation, which we have already done when we were dealing with this problem in our course in lexicology. Denotative component expresses the conceptual content of a word. The leading semantic component in the semantic structure of a word is termed denotative component. Additional semantic components are termed connotations or connotative components. The following list presents denotative components of some English adjectives and verbs. For example, the denotative components of the adjective lonely are alone, without company. Denotative component of the word notorious is widely known. of celebrated, also widely known. Of the verbs to glare and to glance, to look. And of the verbs to shiver and shudder, to tremble. So it is quite obvious that the definitions given in the right-hand column only partially and incompletely describe the meanings of their corresponding words. To give a more or less full picture of the meaning of a word, it is necessary to include in the scheme of analysis additional semantic components, which are termed connotations or connotative components. And now let us complete the semantic structures of the words given above, introducing connotative components into the schemes of the semantic structures. So denotative components plus connotative components. So the denotative components of the adjective lonely are, as you remember, alone, without company, plus connotative components, melancholy, sad. Of the word notorious, widely known, plus for criminal acts or bad traits of character. So this is evaluative connotation, negative evaluative connotation. The denotative component of celebrated is widely known, plus connotative components for special achievements in science, art, etc. So it is positive evaluative connotation. Denotative component of the verb to glare is to look, plus connotative components, steadily, lastingly, in anger, in rage. So it has connotation of duration and at the same time emotive connotation. So denotative component of the verb to glance is to look, plus connotative components, briefly, passingly. So it has connotation of duration. To shiver is to tremble, plus lastingly, usually with cold. So it is connotation of duration and connotation of cause. To shudder is to tremble, plus connotative components, briefly, with horror, disgusted. So it has connotation of duration, connotation of cause, emotive connotation. So another concern of lexical stylistics is the study of nonce words. And we must remember neologisms and nonce words from the course of lexicology. And we must differentiate neologisms and nonce words from each other. A neologism, which is a Greek word, which means new word, is a word that devised relatively recently in a specific time period, has not been accepted into a mainstream language. Most of neologisms are terms which have become international, and their number is growing due to technological revolution, such as network, server, browser, email, site, message, Internet Explorer, etc. And a nonce word is a word coined and used only for special communicative situations, only for this particular occasion. It is not expected to recur, is not used beyond these occasions. They are occasional and frequently arise through the combination of an existing word with a familiar prefix or suffix in order to meet a particular need, or maybe as a joke. Although it would not be found in any dictionary, it is instantly comprehensible. Nonce words easily enter regular use, initially as neologisms, just because their meaning is obvious. They are characterized by freshness, originality, lucidity of their manner, of their inner form and morphemic structure. Now consider the following sentences. The girls could not take off their hats because this was not far from the school gates, and hatlessness was an offense. So hatlessness is a nonce word because this word cannot be found in any dictionary. Yes, it is used only for this particular occasion. And the following examples also serve the examples of this kind. David, in his new grown-upness, had already a sort of authority. That fact had all the unbelievableness of the sudden wound. Suddenly, he felt a horror of her otherness. Lucy was not Willie's luck, or his unluck either. She was waiting for something to happen, or for everything to unhappen. You asked him. I am unasking him, the boss replied. He looked pretty good for a 44-year-old former college athlete who for years had overindulged and underexercised. She was a young and unbeautiful woman. The descriptions were of two unextraordinary boys, 3.5 and 6 years old. And finally, just a few words about syntactical stylistics. General syntax treats word combinations and sentences. Syntactical stylistics studies syntactic expressive means, word order and word combinations, different types of sentences, the length and the structure of a sentence, the types of syntactic connections. Also deals with origin of the text, its division into the paragraphs, dialogues, direct and indirect speech, the connection of the sentences, and the types of sentence.